Well, last week we started Mark chapter 13. Fun. The temple and the end. And as we looked at that, we saw that the disciples and pretty much most of the Jewish people had a direct correlation between the temple being the place of God's presence, His protection, the place where He was safe, everybody's safe. I don't know if you ever had any of those kind of games as you were growing up as a kid that, right here is a safe base. And so you couldn't get tagged and you're not it if you're in the base. Anybody play anything like that? Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, religion kind of brought the temple to that understanding that this is the place that you're safe. And so if everything's happening that's devastating, you come to the temple, you're safe. Come to the temple palace. That's the place, the fortress of the temple. Come, be safe. And as they're leaving Jerusalem, Jesus says there's not going to be one stone left upon another. The disciples, Peter, James, and John, and Andrew, overheard and just saying, okay, we got to figure out, what is this? Because they interpret what Jesus said as this is the end times. This is when the end is going to take place. And so they're coming to Jesus and they're saying, okay, we want the scoop. What's the real dynamics? What's the truth? What's the signs? How will we know when this is going to happen? Now, mind you, they're still thinking devastation of the temple, the end of the world. And in some sense, it could have been the end of their world. But it's not the end. It's not the eschatological end where God wraps up everything for all time. And so they're confused. They're trying to figure out. They're wanting Him to give the scoop. And we saw last week, He didn't spill the beans. He didn't give them what they wanted. The information that they're asking for, He takes and oftentimes does when people are asking for something that's above their pay grade. He gives them what they need. And what they need is to know how to live in these days that are coming upon them. How do you live when forces from outside come and press in and everything's difficult? How do you live when you're being persecuted? So you got two dynamics that's going on. He's teaching His disciples, Peter, James, and John, and Andrew, he's speaking to them not only how to endure this, but how to go and to be full and confident in the progression. Now, we see them this side of Pentecost. We see them this side of the resurrection. We see them this side of the cross. And oftentimes when we get the information before the time, it's like we don't really know how to assimilate that. We don't know how to really bring it in and integrate it into how we live. So what am I supposed to do? Jesus says there's going to be wars. There's going to be famines. There's going to be catastrophes. And guess what? Those are not signs that the end is about to come. Those are the signs that sin has entered the world. And man's sinfulness is what causes all the wars. And so we see a lot of this stuff is just the natural way of living in a fallen world. But He has brought to them the key of proclaiming the kingdom, sharing the gospel, seeing a transformation of men's hearts so that now families and communities and nations and the world will come under His sovereign rule and authority as the Lord and Savior. And so He's preparing them. He doesn't tell them when. He tells them that, there's going to be some really difficult stuff. And He specifically talks about the destruction of 70 AD. AD 70, when Jerusalem is devastated. and the temple is destroyed, and everything is left in shambles. So he's giving them a little bit of information to understand what's going on, and we get a little more specific in today's passage. But he doesn't want them to misconstrue that as that's the eschatological end of all time.